Chapter 35. We stopped at a store not far from the clay pit. Hal looked up the number for the hospital in Tuscaloosa, put some money in a slot, dialed the phone, and handed it to me. I felt my stomach become jittery as I waited for someone to pick up. After a few seconds, a woman answered. Bryant Memorial, she said. Is Kit there? I asked her. Hal shook his head like I'd done something wrong. He took the phone from me and spoke to the woman. The boy they found on the road who's been in the news. Kit Slip. Yeah. He's a friend of ours. Yeah. Hal nodded with the phone squeezed between his chin and shoulder. He he there? I asked. Hal shrugged. Close to the minute went by before Hal spoke again on the phone. Okay, we'll call back later. He hung up the phone. They said he's resting and he can't talk right now. I felt my stomach grow calm again. So he's probably okay then. Sounds like he's fine. We'll try again in a few days. Give him time to rest. Hal said he knew of a place to get parts for the truck. We drove through the countryside until we came to a field of wrecked cars. I walked with him as he looked under their hoods and inside of them. After a while, we came to an old police car with the blue light still attached. Hal climbed onto the roof and sat with the light between his legs. He pulled and rocked until it popped loose. Then he stood and lifted it up until the wire snapped and he had it free. What do you think about this? He said to me. I think it'd look good on top of your truck, I said. You're dang right it would. We took the blue light back to the clay pit and worked under the shade of the equipment shed, installing it. It was close to dark by the time the unit was glued to the roof, and the wires were taped along the side of the truck and under the hood to the battery. Mr. Mitchell came up from the clay pit and parked the front end loader. He was watching us with his when Hale got the light to work for the first time. He shook his head and took a swig from a whiskey bottle. How you like that, Daddy? You boys gonna get us all thrown to jail. Heck, Hale said. I went and talked to that store owner today, I said to Mr. Mitchell. Oh, yeah? He replied. Yeah, Hale said. He pointed at me. He is about to have the law down on us. What did he say to you? Mr. Mitchell asked. Said Pap got messed up by Vietnam. Mr. Mitchell nodded. I can see that. I didn't take it too much myself. What was it like? It was a lot of people dying, is what it was like. But all wars are that way. I think the difference with Vietnam was you had a lot of people that the government made go over there that didn't want to go. Pat must not have wanted to go. He always said he didn't like people telling him what to do, especially the government. I wish I knew more to say to you, Moon. I stared across the clay pit at the tops of the pines, God gauging the breeze. It doesn't matter much now. Maybe one of these days, when you decide to get back to civilization, you can find some more people that knew him. Might be they'll give you the answers you need. Come on, Moon, Hal said. Let's go up to the house and get something to eat. We got some spam and Doritos up there. I looked over at Hal. I've never had Doritos. I know. I'll make you forget about your pap. Come on. Went riding that night with the blue light on. Whenever the water and mud slid off our windshield, we saw the clay pit walls glow in eerie blue. Need some noise to get with this, Hal said. I like it all right. Back at the trailer, we lay in bed and listened to rain pouring down outside. Images of the flickering blue clay pit stayed in my head. Hell, what? Your truck gonna fill up with water? No, got holes in the floorboards. I thought of the shelter kit I had made, far away through the darkness, and wondered how it was holding up. I imagined that some animal had crawled in it and found it a snug home. When I thought of myself lying in that cramped space with leaves and pine straw hanging close to my nose, I felt my soft mattress in the blanket, and I was glad to be where I was. Hell, what? I don't know what I'm going to do. About what? About everything. I thought you were going to go live in the forest with Kit when he got better. What if he doesn't get better? I won't have anybody to go with then. Well, most people would rather sleep in a house than buy things at the store. Kit liked it out there. Kit likes anything you tell him to like. You're the only guy I know that ever made friends with him. How come? I don't know. I guess most people at Pinson thought he was a wuss. What's a wuss? Like a crybaby. He's not a crybaby. I know. I just don't know him before. I just didn't know him before. Nobody else knew him either. He was always going to the doctor. But I think he really liked it out in the forest. I know he did. I was just kidding with you. One of the bloodhounds whined outside the window where it huddled under a woodpile roof. You know, I said, I don't see anything wrong with having a real house, long as it's in the forest or next to a clay pit. Hal yawned. Ain't nothing wrong with staying warm and dry. That's what I want one day, Hal. I want a house trailer drug off into the forest with no roads going to it. How you gonna get it out there? I'll plant trees on the road after they rolled it in. Crap. Maybe you could come live out there with me since I'd have that house trailer. It'd be a fancy living. Cover it up with leaves. We'll never get caught. What in the heck would we do all day? I sat up and looked at him. What do you mean? We'd. Shh, Hal said to me. Gonna wake up Daddy. I lowered my voice. Rope swings and guns and traps and trees, fishing, all kinds of stuff. What about living with Daddy? Suddenly, the perfect world I imagined was gone and everything was gloomy. Oh, yeah, I said. You've already got a house right here, clay pit and all. Hal rolled over and looked at me. Moon, I don't expect to be out there, here running around for too long. Sooner or later, I'm going to have to hit the road or go to Helen Weller. I ain't leaving Daddy, so I guess I'll let 'em take me away when they come. I stared at him. What I'm saying is, I ain't trying to figure out what I'm going to do, 'cause I already know, and I ain't really got much of a choice about it. I nodded. I'd rather be in Helen Weller than living out in that forest or walking down some road somewhere, he said. I lay back down and stared at the ceiling, but I spoke words that I never thought I'd hear coming from my mouth. If I have to be all by myself, maybe I'd rather go to Helen Weller with you. Chapter 36. I spent the next 3 days helping Hal and his daddy in the clay pit. If Hal's daddy didn't need the front end loader to fill a truck, we made trails through the forest with it, using the giant shovel to push a path 10 feet wide. Afterwards, we'd get in the truck, and Hal would see how fast we could run the new track. On Saturday morning, Mr. Mitchell brought us football helmets to wear while we were racing in the woods. The helmets made Hal want to drive faster. I'd never thought about wrecking before, but we went riding after lunch and hit a gum tree head on. The battery flew out of the front grill and jerked the police light from the top of the truck and flew it like a kite tail for 25 yards until it whipped into a tree and shattered into splinters. Both of us hit our heads on the windshield and knocked the spider-webbed glass onto the truck hood. We rocked back into our seats and looked at each other. Whoa, horsey, Hal yelled. I pulled off my helmet and shouted, What else you got? The truck was still running and Hal rocked it into gear and backed away from the tree. The windshield fell off into the weeds. We drove up the track to where the battery lay in the pine needles. Hal got out and followed the wire that led to the police light. When we saw the mangled piece of aluminum, he looked back at me and spit. Dang tree. After getting the battery under the hood again, we made another trip to the field of wrecked cars. We found a windshield, a new grill, some headlights, a hood, and a horn off the top of a Peterbilt truck. We put all these in the bed and started back. That afternoon and night, we worked at the equipment shed, installing the new parts. We put the windshield on first, since so much dust and so many bugs had gotten all over us driving without it. After that, Hal screwed the horn to his roof. Hey, Moon. I looked up. What? I'll show you what else I got. Hal pressed the button for the horn. It was so loud I covered my ears as the sound echoed across the bottom of the clay pit and went skyward. The bloodhounds howled from up at the trailer, and the forest creatures ducked away and fell silent before long. Mr. Mitchell was shuffling down the road towards us without any clothes on. What? He yelled. I ain't calling you, Hal yelled back at him. Mr. Mitchell made a motion like he was waving flies from his face and continued towards us. He gonna care that you mashed up the front of the truck? I asked Hal. Heck no, he knows I'll fix it up better than new. When Mr. Mitchell got to the truck, he stopped and stared at it. He was swaying so much I thought he might fall over. His cheek bulged with tobacco so that when he spoke I could barely understand him. You boys, he said. He looked away and spit. He was quiet for a minute and seemed to have forgotten what he was going to say. Finally, he looked at Hal again. Dang, was all he said. He turned and began to walk up the hill. Next morning, we went on into town to get oil for Mr. Mitchell. Are you going to pass by the laundromat? Yeah. Want to try and call Kid again? Yeah. We pulled into the laundromat, went inside. I sat down at a table next to the payphone while Hal put in the money and dialed the number. He listened for a few seconds and then handed me the phone. You know how to do it this time? I nodded and pressed it into my ear. When the woman answered, I looked at Hal when I spoke. Can I have Kit Slip's room? Hold, please, she said. I felt my hand shaking while I listened to music play over the telephone. We got music playing, I told Hal. Shh, he said. They're getting him. After almost a minute, she picked up the phone again. May I have your name and telephone number and have him call you back? I can't. This isn't my phone. May I have your name, please? What for? Constable Sanders requested. Sanders, I said. Excuse me? I'm not falling for Sanders' tricks. I'm sorry, I'll have to. I hung up. What about Sanders? Hal asked me. He's getting names and numbers of people who call. He's looking for us, Hal said. I've got to go check on Kit. The heck? What if Sanders is hurting him? Sanders can't do anything to him in the hospital. The law can do whatever they want. Hal began walking back towards the truck. I ain't ready to go to Helenweller yet. What are you going? Where are you going? I yelled at him. Get back in the truck, Moon. Let's go home. I started walking up the road away from him. Fine, Hal yelled at me. Just great. Go ahead and walk to Tuscaloosa. I decided I would. I heard Hal drive the truck off in the other direction. Looking at the sun, I figured the time of day and the direction I was headed. Only a few minutes passed before I heard Hal coming back. He drove along beside me and talked out the window. You know where you're going? Tuscaloosa. You know how far it is? It's probably 50 miles, I reckon, at least. Hal shook his head. I ought to let you walk. You don't even know what road to take. I know you don't need any dang roads, Hal said. Get in. You taking me to Tuscaloosa? Yeah, I'll take you, but I ain't going in. I smiled. Hal stopped the truck and I got in. And you ain't gonna wear those clothes I gave you. You'll stand out for sure. You have something else for me? Yeah, we'll get you fixed up at the trailer and go to Tuscaloosa after lunch. Thanks, Hal. You're stubborn as heck.